Now we're starting to see this bi-directional transfer of data between the product and the marketing. The underlining value of Gen AI is it's going to speed everything up and bring things closer together for a more intelligent experience, whether it be on the marketing side or product side. And so now you can see how the content was trained, how it was augmented, how it was distributed. It's not a replacement for human creativity. It's really just an amplifier.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Long Game. My guest today is Chris Duffy, Head of Global Partnerships, focused on Gen AI at Adobe. In this episode, we talk about Adobe's approach to ethically sourced AI and how they have multiple guardrails in place for using AI for the creator, but also empowering the creator to have a more active voice. We also talk about the future trends of work and how the gaps between product and marketer, as well as engineer, are all fading and blurring. And the future of work is probably going to be something more around collaborative results rather than discrete work silos. We explore agentic frameworks. We talk about what the things to watch out for and what the dark side of AI is, and much more. Chris is also the author of multiple books, one of which he co-authored with AI prior to GPT being out. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. And if you liked it, please subscribe. Cheers. Chris, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So with AI, obviously there's multiple different ways in which we're exploring it, which it's showing up on business. You specifically sit at Adobe. What are you guys thinking about? How are you thinking about AI in the corporate world, specifically from Adobe's lens?
Have to say it's been quite an exciting 24 months or so since we first announced our entry into the generative AI space. With that said, we've been in AI for a number of years. Back in 2017, right when I joined Adobe, we launched Adobe Sensei, which was our predictive and analytics capability, and now more recently, generative AI. So it's been a wonderful journey these past few months, in the sense that we are now starting to see not only its impact on the current form of creativity, but we're also starting to see glimmers of where the future of creativity is going to go in terms of how people are ideating, how they're creating, and ultimately what they're creating. So it's been quite a have to use the word transformational moment. Us,
Drop on some buzzwords.
yeah, and the industry.
So can you share some of those glimmers? I'm deeply
Yeah,
curious. Like,
happy
yeah,
and
you're very
yeah.
plugged in, I'm sure.
In many ways, Adobe's a mirror to our customers and the broader industry. We're quite unique because we use our tools to make our newer tools and then ultimately to market our tools. And so we see it both from our side, and then it's kind of quantified and underscored with our customers. Essentially, what we're seeing is we announced a new product called Adobe Firefly. It's now the fastest growing product in the history of Adobe. Within the first 5 months, 5 billion or so generations. And so that initial offering is, you can think of it in terms of it's a product in of itself, but it's also embedded from a feature level in a number of our flagship products. And so that is a great tool to start to get to a starting point faster. From an ideation standpoint, it's been trained on Adobe stock, comprised of hundreds of millions of assets. And so it can now pull a lot of these insights for quicker ideation. Quite often, when I was on the design side at the agencies I used to work at, I would have the idea, but I was never a very technical artist. And sometimes I just couldn't get that idea out into the digital world as fast as I wanted to. And now, literally, you can come up with the idea and text to image. You can get that prompt very quickly. So we're starting to see new forms of the creation process in that regard. Specifically, I like to refer to, if people go to firefly.adobe.com, you can start to see the community share not only their outputs, but how they got to that output. And so you can see the prompt. And so it's now becoming this new form of creativity and ideation where the prompt and the adjectives and the narrative that you're starting to use is becoming increasingly important. So I think that's really interesting from that regard. We're also maybe one ring broader from that is we're starting to see what is the implications in terms of that end to end workflow now. Quite often in years past, when a new technology was introduced, it was where are the current friction points and how can it kind of alleviate some of those friction points. But what we're starting to see is AI, more specifically Gen AI, is so revolutionary. It's creating a whole new end to end workflow, which is pretty interesting. I'll caveat that I don't think there's an industry standard. There's a number of different,
And
I think,
and
cases.
meaning like from idea to a finished design? Is that roughly
Yeah,
an
thank
end-to-end
you.
workflow?
I would, it's a great point of clarification. We tend to think of end to end in terms of the insight gathering as stage one or pillar one, then the creative and production stage, then the distribution, and then the measurement and reporting. And so when we say
Interesting.
end to end, thank you for clarifying. That's what we're referring to. The holy grail the last few years has been um, can you extract insights in near real time in that initial stage that then triggers content creation in near real time, that then triggers distribution, media mix modeling in near real time, and then optimization over and over, faster and faster on a one-to-one level or personalized level. Uh, and so that's kind of been the utopia of the goal. And so what is the workflow to help get to that goal? And there's been a number of different approaches in that regard.
It's really interesting because I come at these things from a product and software perspective
Yeah.
typically. And so generative AI on that side is a lot about, code generation, text generation,
Yeah.
less on the image side. But one of the concepts over there is agentic workflows and multi-agent architectures
Yeah.
where you're stringing together a bunch of AIs to achieve some end-to-end workflow. And what you're describing sounds very analogous of trying to have that continual feedback loop every single step through the entire process, including that self-referential aspect at the end of we generate data. Based on that data, let's have insights. Based on that insights, let's feed it back into the machine and just keep getting better and better with the iterations.
Yeah, I'm so happy you brought that up. That is almost that third ring of how it's really transforming. I think the gap between product and marketing is getting compressed, almost becoming one in the same.
Mhm.
Where quite often there's been a great somewhat of a disconnect if you look at like automotive car simulators in terms of build your own car. Sometimes that data doesn't get propagated back to the marketing. These are the colors, the fabrics, in terms of the data. And so now we're starting to see this bi-directional transfer of data between the product and the marketing, which I think is really indicative of kind of the underlining value of Gen AI is it's going to speed everything up and bring things closer together for a more intelligent experience, whether it be on the marketing side or product side.
Do you see a difference between, I guess, mainstream Gen AI versus image generation AI? And I guess by mainstream, I think of ChatGPT, right? That's kind of the most
Yeah.
common. When we hear Gen AI, we think ChatGPT and chatbots and all that stuff. Do you see them as kind of two separate forks that are going to go on their own journeys? Or do you see them as just different modalities of the same exact thing that are going to kind of stay in lockstep in terms of growth, iteration over time?
Yeah. I would offer it. There's probably not a right or wrong, and there's multiple perspectives on it. We tend to think of it in terms of initially four or five horizons. The first is generative images, generative video. We recently just announced generative 3D, generative
Oh,
design,
interesting.
design at some point, and then code and music and voice. So there's a number of different horizons to the capabilities of generatives. More specific to your question, I think what we tend to gravitate back towards is it's not just about one feature, one capability, one product, but it's really that orchestration and synergy amongst all the products that is the true value prop for enterprises or individuals trying to construct and create at the speed of thought.
I think Adobe is actually a really interesting company in this space because you do touch all those things, right? You're not just Google where you focus on search and kind of text-based software products, and you're not ChatGPT and OpenAI where it's building better models, but you are building the tools that create things, and it's
Yeah.
not just one tool. You're not Cursor just building a text editor for developers. You're building this entire suite of tools that empower people to build technology designs, whatever.
Yeah.
So it's a really interesting use case because, like you said, it's that holistic approach to how do we bring knowledge from each of these different tools, these different spaces of image to video to design to and orchestrate all of them together to achieve that outcome. That's fascinating.
In many ways, that goes back to your earlier point about multi-agents, intelligence and collective intelligence. How can you get that shareability of insights not only from your customer base, but from the creation standpoint as well? So that's something we're heavily focused on. And you can see indications of that in some of our flagship products where the system has embedded intelligence into it, where it understands the workflow. It's making some predictive analyses of what that workflow you're trying to achieve, and if there's a faster way, a faster route to creation, you'll get a little pop up and you get some suggestions as well. And so that was one of the big learnings for us along this journey the last couple of years. Is in many ways we, from a product standpoint, we would ask ourselves throughout the product creation stage, have we taken away all of the speed bumps for the end user to adopt and learn this new product or tool? And now with Gen AI, we've almost inversed that to ask ourselves, have we embedded enough intelligence into the system to learn the user? And so it's really put the onus now on the product and the product designer to have that awareness of embedding intelligence into the product.
What kind of data are you making these decisions on when
Yeah,
compared
a
to the
lot of
past?
like click data, flow data, and then you can extract that into more anonymized patterns and workflow suggestions and multi solution predictions as well.
And do you see a high level of adoption? Because, when Gen AI from an image perspective first came out, there was a lot of talk, and I have friends that are artists that use Photoshop every day and use these tools, and there's a lot of worry and fear about the death of the artist, and this is going to replace us, and this is not good, and it's stealing IP, which is obviously a very serious thing to figure out as we're evolving with these times. But I feel like it's less talked about now. So talk about maybe the artist perspective and adoption from that lens.
Yeah, it's a great point. You can imagine it was a heavily discussed topic internally at Adobe. If we're the company or one of the companies that really champions human creativity, now we're suggesting and offering creative tools seemingly. And so we had the tech for many months before we released it, and we wanted to get a number of internal frameworks in place. One specifically was our ethical AI approach, and we've got a number of strategic pillars that makes up that framework. The first one being accountability. As I mentioned earlier, we only train it on images or IP that we own, and so that allows our end customers, whether big or small, to have a peace of mind that everything is 100% indemnified. So it's industrial strength. It's ready to use from a commercial standpoint. Number two is we don't train off of other artists or train off of the user's data or creation. And so we've got a very kind of responsible approach in that way. We also offer contributors to opt in or opt out if they want um, their content to be trained off of, which allows indicates a newer opportunity in terms of the creator economy that this Gen AI is really flourishing and developing, where now
Wait,
people,
can you
yeah,
explain the
yeah,
yeah, sorry, just the creator economy aspect? Yeah.
yeah. So now with Adobe Stock, you can opt in if you're a contributor to upload your piece of content. And if you opt in, you get rewarded or you get monetized off of that contribution. Or if you don't want it, you can opt out of that opportunity. And so I
That's
think that that really signals how it's creating, much like the mobile area era created, the app economy and so on. So we're starting to see people can, start to monetize their creations in new ways that didn't really exist before.
yeah, I think that's fascinating, and it's I guess an analog version that somewhat existed is selling your photos as stock photography,
Yeah,
and
it's
the
definitely flow.
distribution platform gets some money, and
Yeah,
then you, the artist, get some money. But like all technology, it exponentializes things. So the fact that there is a platform to, first of all, a choice, right? Do you want to train off this data or not? But then there's incentive for you to do so in the form of now your IP is out there. It's associated with you. It's your portfolio of
yeah,
work, but you can also earn off of it from a licensing perspective. I think that's a it's a healthy way to empower the artists while also trying to expand the volume of content that's created. That's cool.
yeah.
Like
No,
YouTube.
it really is. And then the third one is greater traceability and transparency. So a few years ago, we created the Content Authenticity Initiative. It's now comprised of 3,000 or so media, hardware, and software companies. And so this allows for greater traceability of content authenticity, essentially. And so I like to think of it as a invisible nutritional label that you can click on, and you have a drop down, much like the back of a juice can or a water, where you can see the nutritional aspects. And so now you can see how the content was trained, how it was augmented, how it was distributed. We're starting to get to see how it performed, which is quite interesting. So those are the three elements that we wanted to get fundamentally in place. We also have an AI ethics board that reviews kind of things that weren't emerging, and so we've got a nice foundation just to look back how we got on those three things that we really think it is not we truly believe, and I do as well. It's not a replacement for human creativity. It's really just a amplifier. When I was on the agency side, I would quite often, uh, proudly say I'm a creative problem solver, which I still believe is very valuable. But I'm also seeing and starting to think Gen AI is allowing us to become a problem seeker, where we now can have more time to go out and
Hmm.
find the challenges, because in many respects, the system, when directed and kind of curated, can help solve the problem faster. So more time can be spent on finding problems to solve in many ways.
That's really interesting. So instead of say 10% of our time going to finding new problems and then 90% going
Yeah.
to solve those problems, now we can have 50% of our time
Yeah.
finding new problems because our tools are better at solving them.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
That's also a good framework to kind of understand. Again, I really am a firm believer in AI empowers humans to do their highest and best use. And
Yeah.
it's the same type of thing of if you hire a person, in theory, if they're, working as a direct report to you, they're going to be taking some part of your job that you used to do so you can focus on things that are
Yeah.
maybe more specialized and more difficult to do.
Yeah, great point. It up levels us,
Yeah.
essentially as a society.
So you talked about marketing and product kind of merging a little bit.
Yeah,
What do you see? I mean, there's some stat which is like 50% of the jobs that people will be employed by in 10 years don't exist, and or whatever the stat is, right?
yeah.
What do you see as these roles that are starting to emerge. We had this concept of like a prompt engineer, which maybe won't actually,
Yeah.
live beyond 2022 and 2023. But are there other roles that you're seeing, which is this person who has some product and some marketing and some analytics, and that's going to be like a really strong role that ties together with AI? Or are there any other kind of futuristic aspects that you're thinking about for employment or roles within organizations and teams?
Yeah, maybe how we got into this topic, I would just offer the stats that I've been seeing and hearing quite often is initially it's not replacing jobs, it is changing tasks, which you're indicating. And I think a lot of the tasks, to your earlier point, are those repetitive kind of tasks that we didn't get into our industry because of those repetitive tasks. We got into it for the higher level critical thinking and problem solving. So with that said, I'm starting to see in many ways there's some indication from the smaller enterprises that are getting adopted upwards into the broader enterprises in terms of the ability to expand SKUs and products and, mixology. You're starting to see a lot of really interesting use cases. So in many ways, the ability to come up with the product and then market it quicker and quicker is starting to become a theme that we're starting to see kind of adopted into the broader enterprises. More specific to your point, one hypothesis is in many ways we've, as an industry have discussed the waterfall approach is probably a bit traditional and outdated, from a software uh, product standpoint that kind of has evolved many years ago. But there's this sense of almost a team as a hub that goes throughout the process together. And at different points, there'll be a different lead for each of those different disciplines. So I
And you're
would
saying
offer,
in the waterfall methodology, there's kind of the phases with
yeah,
a
yeah,
lead for each
yeah.
phase. Okay.
And so I would offer the gap between the disciplines are becoming closer, not replacing, but getting closer and working closer together. It's been quite exciting to see how data scientists are working closer with product designers for that sharing, and how marketing is starting to work closer with the field teams and so on. So I think essentially it's getting closer together in terms of the shareability of information and learning and adopting from that.
I have a team that is one of our teams focusing on Gen AI. Well, building a software from scratch for a new team, and they're very much embracing kind of AI tooling. And so the designer is actually doing, kind of thinking out loud with Claude, and
Yeah,
also getting
amazing.
into the IDE to, windsurf. I don't know if you've heard it from
Yeah,
Codium. It's kind of it's the new cursor.
yeah.
Um, and kind of prototyping some things, and then the front end engineer is getting into V0 and generating components using ShadCN, and the product manager is kind of in all of it. So it's really interesting to see exactly what you're describing of the merging of these different fields. Not merging, but the getting closer. I think that's a really good way to describe it.
Yeah.
The handoff is a little bit more blurred. It's a little bit closer together, and there's more communication and more coupled or kind of moving together as a squad.
But yeah, I like, you bring up another dimension to think about in terms of the multimodal implications of not only the output, but the creation process. I've long said, if we look back to Pollock, right, how he used physicality into the creation process, much
Jackson
like
Pollock.
that. Yeah, much
Yeah.
much like that, we're starting to get new types of output because of the new forms of creation, whether it be voice design, text prompting, through haptic, creation process. So it really is quite an exciting time from a personal creator standpoint, but also I believe from a customer usability and value because I think we're at quite an exciting time in terms of all this convergence of all of these new technologies, new forms of creation coming together.
Yeah, it really is kind of the input and output, right? I
Yeah.
mean, there's probably jobs in the future of building the AI voice model to emulate emotions in a way
Yeah.
that's not overbearing, but based on the use case, exactly
Yeah.
matches the tonality, and maybe the tone changes based on your demographic, right? So like, there's all this kind of weird
Yeah.
stuff you can start playing with of exploring
And
multimodality.
and that's one of, the horizons we're exploring. We've got, I believe about 20 languages or so for voice dubbing, and so, obviously, with that, quite interesting, valuable use cases, but again, that's where that content credentials and content authenticity obviously it plays an important role to verify the authenticity of that type of content, but we've been playing around with it internally. We test, a lot of our tools for months before we release it, and so it's been fun to be able to translate from German to Japanese to Portuguese, and not only get the sound and the inflections right, but the lips really spot on. And we've done some use cases with beards and hair where it really flows naturally to the different inflections of the voice and
Did
language.
you ever think we would be here? Just like in your life, 5 years to any time before, did you think we would be at this? We would literally be sitting down having a conversation about generating avatars that look like people that you can generate sound for all through artificial intelligence. I mean, this is pretty crazy.
Oh, it's, amazing. It's, the imagination coming to life in many ways. I I think, similar to the mobile era, we all had this sense it was gonna be big, and so when we all first probably saw the iPhone, we knew something was there and the broad implications of that, and I would make a similar, um, parallel to Gen AI from maybe 10 years ago. I started using it, initially on some client, use cases for predictive analysis for healthcare, and so for broader mobility and so on, and so that really sparked my interest in imagination, and so, I think we're in the very early innings of seeing where this all goes. I think that brings up another great point. Right around the corner is, as we were chatting earlier off screen, uh, what's the next chapter for the metaverse or spatial computing or mixed reality? And so I think as excited as we are about Gen AI, it's really going to flourish in that mixed reality, immersive experience right around the corner as well.
What do you see as? I mean, we kind of had this wave of big push towards virtual reality, mixed reality, augmented reality, all these different terms
Yeah,
with slightly different meanings. And we had Meta rebrand as Meta rather
yeah,
than Facebook, and Zuck put billions of dollars into that space. And we had Apple enter with the Vision Pro, which has a little bit flopped. But there's been this kind of push, I think, from some aspects saying, okay, well, are we at VR side? Are we at mixed reality? Like, and it's been this bubbling. I mean, I was in Silicon Valley in 2010, 2012, something like that, and it was just starting to pop off then. And do you think we are? It sounds like you think we're close to the cusp of this really becoming more mainstream and being more popular.
yeah. In a sense, we're waiting for the iPhone moment or an
Hmm. Hmm.
iPhone-like moment for the hardware, and so that really is. I think we've got to get that hardware right, and it's infinitely complex from a technical standpoint. Everything from the battery life to the latency to the visual acuity, and so we've got the bits and pieces. Just a few weeks ago, Meta shared some interesting headsets that I think are indications of it's getting smaller and smaller and faster and faster. If you look at AI, that was really kind of introduced in the mid 50s for the most part. So that took a number of decades, and we're only a decade or so into the from all intensive purposes from a mixed reality standpoint. So I think it's starting to get there from a hardware perspective, as well as the software, which we're heavily focused on in terms of generative 3D, really to bring that experience to life.
Two-part question here. What keeps you up at night, both from a excitement perspective of what you want to see in the world, what you're excited about, and then also what's the worries that you think are maybe not being looked at that should be more attention should go towards them?
Yeah, in many ways, they're kind of very linked together. I'm quite excited about the ability for creators to have a bigger seat at the boardroom table, because I think their value in many ways in past years has been executional. And
Mm,
what we're starting to see is now, with this speed and capability of creation, whether be from a marketing or product standpoint, the emphasis is really going to kind of reinforce their value from a corporate standpoint. So I think that that's quite exciting. With that said, as we talked about, things are moving so quickly. It's really from an individual, from a business and societal and governmental, where is the magical balance of speed and safety? And so that's almost on a case by case basis. And we see some of these missteps over the last few years, and so it's really having the safeguards in place to prevent some of those things from happening.
I think the safeguards comment is a good one because we're not going to slow it down,
Yeah,
but you can put up guardrails to make
yeah,
sure it's channeled, or
yeah,
even as it accelerates, it goes in the appropriate direction.
and multiple guardrail
Yes.
along multiple steps. Yeah,
I think too the perspective of the creator in the boardroom is one that I haven't heard, but it makes sense because at the end of the day, we've always kind of had this give and take, this push and pull between the creatives of a business who want to create this beautiful product, this experience, this design, and then the business side, which is, well, we have to make money and be
yeah,
profitable and cut costs. And I think we lose out. I think we lose out on having creator voices elevated to be on a more even playing field with the business side. But to your point, as these lines start blurring or melting down, or the creator is able to get closer towards the business side, having them more represented and having them more engaged in the business side, I think that could create a really interesting new, not necessarily a new corporate structure, but a new way of organizing that creates products that are more tied into
yeah.
the creative aspect.
They're more informed, and I love how really respect that you're using the word creator versus creative. I think
Mm.
creator is a little more accurate in terms of they're creating not only a marketing or a product, but they're creating growth for the company, which we're going to see more of in the future.
Chris, this has been a wonderful conversation. If people want to connect with you or learn more, we didn't even touch on your books.
Yeah.
Um, Chris wrote the first book with AI. Why don't we talk about that for a little bit? But just before we wrap up, I
Oh,
mean,
good, very good.
first of all, what is that even? How did you even think of doing that, and what was that process like?
Yeah, thanks for bringing it up. It's maybe 7 or so years ago. Previously I was on the digital health side, and that was about 12 or so years ago. That's when we started working with IBM Watson, and that really kind of opened my eyes to the opportunity of this convergence of AI and pattern recognition and overlaying an experience or a digital experience. And so that kind of sparked my interest. I went deep into that, went back to school, and learned everything I could about it. And I thought this could be the next chapter opportunity for the creative community, and wanted to write a book about it. And so wrote a book, and I didn't just want to have an academic kind of approach. I wanted to actually use it. So I used some early language transformer models to be the system, which I called Amy, AI plus me. And so I had a conversation with Amy back and forth, and that truly was a validation point for me of how big of an opportunity this is for the us as a society and creatives, in the sense that I had now a creative counterpart that I could have a conversation much like you and I are having, and I would bounce ideas and I would get feedback in near real time. Things were too serious, too shrewd, list goes on and on. And so I built a number of feedback loops per section, per chapter, and I would just overlay the tonality. And I experimented with some early jokes, and I go back sometimes, and it's interesting. You can see how the system over throughout the course of the book was learning as well, which is a indication of kind of a standard practice now of reinforcement learning, where some of the early jokes were really bad. And I contemplated, should I leave them in? And I left them in. But as the system learned some humor, they got a little better towards the end of the book. And so that was the first book, and really enjoyed the process. And I think it validated, how big this was going to be in the years to come.
That's really cool to hear, and definitely a early peek at the large language models and the generative neural nets that now are a extremely common household name.
Yeah.
Chris, this has been a wonderful conversation.
Thank you.
Man.
Enjoyed it. Thank you.
If you enjoyed that episode, make sure you check out this video right here. And if you really enjoyed it and you listened to the end, take 2 seconds and share the love so someone else might find it by clicking the thumbs up button and subscribing. I appreciate you, and I hope you have a wonderful day. But click that button.